You know, in India, getting married is so much more than just a personal choice. It's like stepping into this incredible world where ancient traditions and modern laws all weave together. Every community has its own set of rules, its own ceremonies, its own idea of what makes a marriage real. So, let's untangle this amazing legal and cultural puzzle together. So let's start with the big question. What is a marriage, really? Is it a sacred, unbreakable vow, or is it more like a legal agreement, a contract between two people? Well, here's the thing about India. The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's kind of both. And that tension, right there, is what makes the country's marriage laws so incredibly fascinating.
So when the law does talk about marriage as a contract, it's definitely not the kind you'd sign for a business deal. Lawyers have a fancy term for it, sui generis, which basically just means it's in a category all by itself. See, you can't just rip it up if you both agree to, and it's the law, not the couple, that sets most of the rules. The main thing to get is that it's a contract that actually creates a whole social institution.
Okay, so before anyone even thinks about vows or signing papers, the law has to ask a really basic question. Do these two people even have the legal ability or capacity to marry each other? Let's break down what that actually means.
And right away, we hit one of the biggest differences you'll find. For Hindus, Christians, and Parsis, the law is crystal clear, one spouse at a time, period. Marrying a second person while you're still married is a criminal offense. On the other hand, under Muslim personal law, a man is permitted to have up to 4 wives. But, and this is a huge but, it comes with the heavy condition that he must be able to treat them all with fairness and justice.
Now, no matter what your personal law says, there is one rule that cuts across everything and applies to absolutely every single citizen: the minimum age for marriage. Thanks to the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, a man has to be at least 21 and a woman has to be at least 18. That's the baseline, no exceptions.
And another one of these universal rules is all about mental capacity. The law is super clear on this. A marriage just isn't valid if either person can't genuinely consent because of their mental state, or if they have a condition that makes them unfit for the responsibilities that come with marriage, including having kids.
Every culture and legal system in the world agrees you can't marry your close relatives. But, the question of how close is too close, well, that's where things get really different depending on which law you're looking at. Let's see how those lines get drawn.
Okay, so under Hindu law, you've got this thing called the Sapinda rule. It sounds complicated, but it's basically a very specific way of counting generations. You trace your family tree up 5 generations on your dad's side and 3 on your mom's. If you and the person you want to marry share a common ancestor anywhere in that zone, then, legally, the marriage is off the table, unless there's a very specific, provable custom that allows it.
Now, Muslim law takes a totally different approach. It doesn't get into counting generations. Instead, it lays out 3 really clear no-go zones. There's consanguinity, which means your blood relatives. There's affinity, which are the relationships created through marriage, like your in-laws. And then there's fosterage, this really unique idea where if you are breastfed by the same woman as someone else, you're considered milk siblings and can't get married.
All right, so we figured out who can get married. Now for the fun part. How do you actually make it official? This is where we dive into the beautiful, diverse world of ceremonies. Because in a lot of these traditions, performing the right ritual is the exact thing that makes the marriage legally binding.
If you look at a traditional Hindu wedding, you'll see a bunch of important rites. But from a legal standpoint, the one that really truly counts is the saptapadi, those 7 steps the couple takes together around the sacred fire. The law is so specific about this. The moment that 7th step is taken, the marriage is legally complete and can't be undone.
And in stark contrast to that, a Muslim marriage, the nikah, is at its very core a civil contract. It's not about all the elaborate rituals. All you really need is a clear proposal, the ijab, from one person, and a clear acceptance, the qabul, from the other, all happening in the same place at the same time. It's that simple.
And here's the cool little detail that shows the diversity even within Muslim law. For Sunni Muslims, that proposal and acceptance has to happen in front of 2 witnesses to be valid. But for Shia Muslims, witnesses actually aren't required at all.
So with all these different religious laws, you might be wondering, what if you don't want to follow any of them? Or what if you're from different faiths? Is there another way? And the answer is yes. This is where India's secular framework comes in, a common ground available to every citizen.
That other way is the Special Marriage Act of 1954. Think of it as the purely civil, secular path to getting married. It lets any 2 Indians, no matter what their religion is, get married through a simple civil ceremony, completely bypassing their personal laws. This makes it a really crucial option, especially for interfaith couples.
And this table really breaks it down, right? You've got two main paths. On one side, you have personal law, which is all about religious customs and specific rituals. And on the other, you have the Special Marriage Act, one uniform secular law for everyone, where all you need is a simple declaration in front of an official. It's really a choice between tradition and uniformity.
Now, to try and bring some order to all this and make things legally clearer, the Supreme Court has been pushing for one big change, making it mandatory for all marriages to be registered no matter how they happened. And why is that so important? Well, that marriage certificate is the ultimate proof. It's absolutely essential for protecting the rights of spouses, especially women, and for making sure kids are recognized as legitimate.
Okay, but this brings up a really fascinating final question. What about those couples who've been together forever? Everyone thinks of them as husband and wife, but they never had a big ceremony and they never got a certificate. In the eyes of the law, are they actually married?
Well, the answer is this really powerful legal idea, the presumption of marriage. Basically, the courts would rather see a relationship as valid than not. So if a man and a woman live together for a long, long time and hold themselves out to the world as a married couple, the law will just assume they are married. It's a smart rule that protects people and their children. The burden of proof then shifts to anyone who wants to argue that they aren't married.
So where does all this go from here? Well, the legal landscape of marriage in India is always changing. The conversation is ongoing, with a real push towards maybe simplifying some ceremonies and definitely making registration mandatory for absolutely everyone. The big goal is to find that perfect balance, a system that respects deep traditions while also giving every single person clear legal protection. What do you think that future should look like?